Yo, what up, y'all? Just going to wait for a few people to join in. When you join in, let me know where you're watching from, where you're at. This is a Q&A, so open for questions. If you have questions, please utilize the question mark thing to your right, should be to your right, to drop your question. That way I can pull it up on my screen and I can see what exactly you are. I can read it more clearly. Because if you write something and things kind of keep going, I won't be able to see it after a while, unless I scroll. Yo, Mind Body Soldier from Denver. What's up? What's up out in Colorado? Hopefully it's warm out there. Yeah, so this is just a basic Q&A. I do this every Thursday. Give you the opportunity to engage, ask a few questions. Badges are turned on. Badges help support me as I continue to create free content and educational content for everyone. It's just a way to give back to the community, so I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, sis Bernadette, with the badge. Really appreciate it. Shoot, if nobody have any questions, I might just see if Bernadette got time. If you got time, we can just jump in and start talking about jump rope and yeah, I want to say Make It Fun NYC. She just got shout out by damn, what's that dude's name? God, I forgot his name. The dude that had the was it P90X? I don't know, one of them programs. He shouted her out because she's got some great messages. You know, I think it's really important. What's up, y'all? As y'all coming in, please drop a comment. Let me know where you hollering at me from. If you have any questions, you know, use a little question mark thing to the right, and now that'll prompt me to read it so I can answer it. For those of you who support with badges, we might be able to like do a little thing where we can jump on and go live together and answer your question. Change your scarf and turn on the light. Yeah, Sean T just shout out Bernadette. Look at that. I'm 1 degree of separation from Sean T. Tell y'all a little story real quick. This is a funny story. So I'm not sure if you all are familiar with Tae Bo, right? Some of you may be too young for it. Some of you, you know, this might be right up your alley. If you're around my age, then you know exactly what it is. So Tae Bo took the world by storm in the 90s. And, you know, I had the DVD. Hell of people had the DVD. People was Tae Boing their ass off in their living rooms. So when I got to UCLA, it was announced one day that they would be bringing Tae Bo to campus, and it would become a regular class. And so they inside of the fitness center, there were these massive volleyball courts where the volleyball team practiced, and so they opened up that space for the class, and like it was hundreds of people in line trying to get in there. So I got in. It was free. They were just giving you an opportunity to do it. And then made you feel old with the Tae Bo. And so then I got in, and I'm in, and what I didn't know was that Billy Blanks himself was going to be coaching it. Right? I thought it was just going to be, you know, some like one of the foot soldiers, one of the people who he has that teach it. But he shows up. So Billy Blanks comes in. You know, and if y'all don't know who Billy Blanks is, I mean, he's a very successful dude. He's been in some old, martial arts films and stuff like that. Probably one of the few African American people to be in those early sort of films. And he created Tae Bo. So he's there. And so everybody's going crazy, right? So we start doing the class. Man, this dude is crazy. So he's going around, and so this is UCLA, right? We got, I think it was like 3% African American at UCLA at the time, right? So it might have been me and one other person, of one other black person in that entire class of like 300, 400 people. So of course, he see me, right? He see me out there, and he's like, oh, I'm beelining for this dude. So we sweating, we tired, and this dude had nerve to come over to me. We doing these side kicks. And he places his body up underneath my kick. And he's like, come on, keep it up high. Come on, brother, keep it up. And I'm like, oh, man, now you put me on the spot. I'm already on the spot because I'm the only black person, or one of the only black people in that whole entire space. But now you're just going to put me completely on the spot. I got to keep my leg up here. And we doing those kicks where your leg is out and you're just like moving at the knee joint. So it's in mobility training, we just call those hinges, right? So we're doing mobility hinges. But, man, my hip was trying to like kick my ass. My hip was like, yo, what are you doing, dog? And I was like, I'm trying to keep my leg up over Billy Blanks' shoulder. Like, this is Billy Blanks. But yeah, that was a crazy experience. Anyway, we got one question. I think if Bernadette wants to go live, we're going to go live after this question. Just send me the notification, Bernadette. So this question comes from Infinite Jonah. It says, sometimes when I'm doing joint movements, there's a lot of popping and cracking. Could or should that be avoided? That depends on whether it's attributing to pain or things of that nature. I think that it's kind of natural for there to be some sort of like cracking and popping and things like that, especially as we get older. But that just really depends on it depends on a lot of things. So if I'm going through, like, say, a joint movement, and I mean, everything on me cracks and pops. I'm 44 years old. So, when I get up, my toe just cracked right now. I just popped just from moving my toe, right? It's not a bad thing. What becomes bad is when you're moving in certain spaces and that cracking or popping is associated with a pain signal or symptom. So that's definitely to be avoided. But I think general joint movement, if there's some pop or crack or things like that going on, I mean, this is kind of a natural occurrence as we're getting older and things like that. So it's not much to be worried about or to be concerned with. And also, what happens over time is if we are doing some of the joint training input. So if you've been assessed and we can see where there might be limitations for your joint, and we start training those limitations, those things may clear up. So, for example, for me, when I used to go into internal rotation on this arm, I used to have pain. I couldn't go into that sort of space, but I would go around it. But remember, this is a pain symptom, so we're going around the pain. As I'm carving around that pain, things began to actually clear up because I was doing also the work to create space where I didn't have it for internal rotation and external rotation. And so over time, those cars continued to get better and better and better. Now, the pain symptom began to go away, or the inflammatory response began to go away, so it wasn't in a constant pain. But then in time, what began to happen is that thing began to reduce until I got down to the thing. And the thing happened to be, whatever it was something that I was going into internal rotation, and there was something that was happening where it literally felt like a guitar string being plucked. Boom. And that shit hurt. So something like that, definitely, I would avoid that. But it all goes back to you needing to be assessed. Michi, thank you is that how you pronounce it? I hope that's how you pronounce it. I hope I pronounced it right. Thank you so much for the badge and support. Really appreciate your support. Bernadette, you still there? Oh, look at that. We got Josh over here from Progressive from the Motion Lab. Yeah, you rebranded. Here we go. I don't know much about I had another question here. It says, do I know why Olympic weightlifters have a lot of fat in their abdomen? I do not. I mean, I think it just depends on the person and what their goals are. I think, in general, like with weightlifting, the objective is not aesthetic. So, the training that's done for that is different. I know that when I started powerlifting, everything got bigger, and there's nothing to stop that. All right, Bernadette's here. Did you send her a little request? So I'm taking requests. We're doing questions, but I'm taking requests as well. So Bernadette was first up. We're gonna wrap because Bernadette on T, and it's really because of the message that she was putting out, and I want y'all to hear her message, which I think is important as well. I think there we go. Hey, it's been a minute since we chat.
I know.
And this is random.
I love it.
We're in the random Q&A. And so y'all didn't know y'all had this question, but y'all do have this question because Bernadette's always reminding y'all that you have this question.
There go my physical therapist right there, Precision Care Medical.
What's up, Precision Care Medical? A lot of y'all didn't know y'all had this question, but you do have this question because Bernadette keeps reminding you that you have this question, and it is, can I jump rope with bad knees? And then the other thing that I wanted to chat with you really quickly about is your messaging, because I think your messaging is important. The response that you made, the one that Sean T reposted or shared, I think that's an important message for people to hear. And so jump right in. The first question is, can you still jump rope or was it jump roping affect your knees negatively, or I can't jump rope because I got bad knees, or?
Yeah, that's the thing I always say. So, first of all, bad knees is kind of subjective. It's like, what are bad knees, right? Is it like the knee is sore? Like what is bad knees? Because a lot of times, people watch me jump and they're like, oh, I wish I had your knees. And then sometimes in the back of my head, because I know what's up with my knees,
I'm like, oh, you don't.
What you only knew about my knees, okay? Y'all would not want my knees, okay?
Yeah.
I would have knees, right? So with jumping rope, jumping rope is a phenomenal, exercise. And the rule of thumb, right, is if you can run or jog, you can jump, because jump rope can be safer than running and jogging, right? Most times people are just doing it wrong. And when you're jumping, all you literally have to do is jump high enough to clear the rope. That's it. A rope is like this thin. That's how high you need to jump. No higher than that. If you're jumping higher than that, then that's where you start to affect your knees, your joints, your ankles, and everything involved, right? And then there's also safety precautions that you can take, such as wearing the right shoes. You want to wear shoes that absorb shock, such as running shoes, cross trainers. Like way back when I was in my 20s, I used to wear Chucks. I would not dare ever in my life right now jump in a pair of Chucks, okay? Because I already know. You want to do things like jump on the correct surface. So you want to use like something like a rubber track turf or a wooden floor, because they will absorb that shock. A lot of times you do want to avoid the concrete. And if you don't have either, get a rubber mat. They have them all over the internet. Also, you want to make sure that you're jumping high enough to clear the rope. Like I said, I think I mentioned that earlier. You want to jump on your toes only. You don't want to land hard. You want to land soft, and you don't want to jump on your whole foot, right? So these are things that you can do. And then in addition to those things, you can do leg strengthening exercises. So that would really depend on, what works for you. And, the great thing is, myself, and just a little plug right now, myself and the Upgrade guys, we actually created a course for that. So it's called Jump Rope Skills Prep and Recovery, in which I give you like 24 different jump rope skills. But in addition to, even before we start the jump rope skills, I actually give you guidelines on how to jump properly. And then the upgrade guys, what they did is they gave you preparing for an exercise, because a lot of times, you know, I'll get on the line and I'll say, hey, yeah, 10 minutes of jump rope is equivalent to a 30-minute jog on a treadmill. And then people go deep down in their soul and go in that closet and they find that jump rope and then they start jumping. And then what happens a couple of days later, I get a DM like, oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain. And, you know, you got to prepare. You can't just like one day get up and
jump
then
off the couch and run a marathon.
Right. Yeah. You know, the funny thing about it is I recently started doing like races, right? It's crazy. I recently started doing, but I don't like running and jogging. So I don't set myself up for that. But what I did do is I started like speed walking, right? Which is hard as well. So it was like one day, it was like a virtual race. So I went, I taught my jump rope class and I didn't eat any food, right? Because I don't like eating before I work out. So I went to teach my jump rope class, didn't eat. So I did that. And then I think I did something else. And then I went to Brooklyn to the track where I usually run and stuff like that. So all I had, because I was hungry, I went to GNC real quick, got a protein shake, drank the shake, and I walked. I mean, I did that. That was my first ever 10K. And I walked. And when I tell you, when I was done, I did not want to get off the floor. Like, I did not want to get off the floor. I didn't want to drive home. I was throwing up the whole 9 yards. And it kind of brought me back to some of your reels that's saying, like, you can't just get off the couch one day and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And it's so true. And the following Sunday, I actually did an in-person race, but I was a bit more prepared as far as like hydration-wise, how to eat. And now in my current practice, like I'll go out and I walk 3 times a week, you know, just because you can't just show up on that day. And I had to learn that lesson as well. You can't just show up and do. You actually have to prepare the body, you know, for it. And in this course that we collaborated with and together, basically, they break it down. Like they give you all the exercises that you need, like to recover from the exercise, to strengthen the muscles. And I know I've seen somebody here earlier saying, you know, should you go to physical therapy? And quite honestly, I go to physical therapy. Like, I mean, my health insurance pays for it, you know what I'm saying? And it's a time for me to get out the house. And also in that time that I'm there, I know I'm going to do these exercises. And they're sports correction specialists, so they take care of me. Like, I don't mind. But at the same time, you know, all the exercises, my lady remind me every day, like, don't just do the exercises here, do the exercises at home, right? So you have, like, take what you have here, take the resources that you have here and use it. Like, you know, like all of the prep and recovery and all that, that's not my specialty. So it's like I collaborated with someone where that's all they talk about. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do these things. I may do the exercises, the stretches and things like that, but you want to work with people that this is all they talk about. This is all they know. So that collaboration was amazing. And also, too, you want to make sure that you learn jump rope the proper way. You don't, like I said, you don't want to just get the rope and then the rope is too long. So that when the rope is too long, your form is off. When your form is off, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to be injured. Then you're going to be in my DM like, oh my gosh, I really love what you say. But because jump rope, it looks easy. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people used to jump as a little kid. They used to go to the park, la, 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 la. But then when you start getting 30 and 40, like, your body's different. You know what I'm saying? Like, la, 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 la. And then, like, you got to, like, do enough. Like, you kind of sit here and you look at people, and instead of starting at like the boring basic jumps that I preach all the time, I'll be like, yo, anytime I do like my live workouts, I'm doing 10 sets of 100 jumps. No tricks, no double unders, no crosses, no nothing. 10 sets of 100 jumps. Start basic. Stop looking at these jump rope stars that you see online and trying to do what they do. Guess what? These people put in years, times, months, days, hours to get where they are today. You know, and I try to preach that all the time. Basics, 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 basics. Like, look at your favorite athletes, like the basketball players, for instance. When you see them in the gym, you barely see them playing basketball. You see them practicing skills. So you see them at the same 3-point line or sideline or whatever the lines are called, practicing that same shot. Like, I think I did my 45-minute walk the other day, like yesterday, and I walked the whole track for 45 minutes straight. The high school football team was there. I didn't see them throwing out one football. That whole time they were doing their drills and their practices and things like that. So y'all got to remember that the basics is what's going to make you great. And in order for you to become great, you have to learn the basics and start there.
Absolutely. Hey, we had a real quick question from somebody, man, Infinite Jonah going hard in the paint in the question space. He said, how long is the typical jump rope workout?
It honestly depends on you. So I always preach that 10 minutes is equivalent to a 30-minute jog. And for me personally, when I'm doing my jump rope workouts, I usually do like 10 sets of 100. And that would take me anywhere from 8 to 10 to 15 minutes. But like I said, I always record it live. So sometimes I'm answering questions in the midst of it. But if you're like really going with like little short breaks in between, because honestly speaking, it takes about 30 seconds to do 100 jumps if you're kind of going at a fast pace. But if you're going even at a regular slow pace, it should take you no more than 40 seconds to do 100 jumps, right? So if you're doing 10 sets of 100 jumps with like maybe a 10 to 15 to 30-second rest in between, you should be done in no more than 15 minutes. So, you know, whether if you're pressed for time, that's a good workout to do. If you know, don't want to put too much pressure on your joints, that's, you know, what you want to do. But like I said, it really depends. If you're the type that like to do circuits and things like that, like do like your 3 like strength exercises, then do like 100 jumps in between as active rest. There's so many different ways that you can incorporate. You can do a Tabata. Like this morning, I did an 8-round Tabata, which was 4 minutes, kettlebell swing and jump rope. So it was like 20-second jump rope, 10 seconds rest, the 20-second kettlebell. And I did that continuously for 4 minutes. And then I finished it off with doing like 500 jumps, like in sets of 100. So it really depends. And you have to, you know your body, and you have to know what's right for you and go accordingly.
Yeah. You know, I think it's important because, like, so there's a couple things like pulling out of that, you know, jumping off the couch. That's my post today. It was like a lot of people in that sort of like boot camp Navy SEAL mindset of like just jumping up and going, you know, and honestly, to be 100%, there was a time in my life where like that was easy to do. Like in my 20s, like that was totally easy to do. And so I think that sometimes like people, there's a miscommunication with people, especially younger people who might be viewing these sort of things right now, who are like, well, I do that. And it's like, the question becomes like, should you do that?
Right.
Or shouldn't you do that? But you know, when you think about it, like just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And I'm the first one to say like, yeah, at 25 years old, I could do a lot of stuff, and I did do a lot of stuff. Would I do some of the stuff differently? Possibly.
Right.
Because that those cumulative things I am now the sum of those cumulative things, right? And so when we think about jumping rope, well, a lot of people don't understand because like they go straight to thinking about the knees. And I'm like, well, the first touch point is your foot, right? The foot has 26 bones? Something like that, right? I don't remember the exact, I always get mixed up, like 26, 23, I think it's 26 bones in the foot. That's a lot of damn bones.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of articulation. So that's a lot of connection points, right? And every joint, so that's a lot of joints. Every joint has 6 degrees of freedom, which means there's 6 directions of movement that every joint should be able to do. And that means your foot should be able to do that too. Now think about this. Your knee is one joint. It's one articulation with 6 degrees of freedom, right? The real question you should be asking yourself is, if my knees hurt when I'm doing this, is my foot even doing the job that it's supposed to be doing, right? Because your foot is the first thing that needs to absorb the forces and the load from the ground. Your foot is the first point of contact, right? And so you got half the people out here, and I tell people who come in an assessment, and I ask them, can you actively lift your big toe off the floor? And they can't even like they're looking at their big toe like, it's not moving, coach. It's not moving. I'm trying to, and then like it does this herky jerky sort of like, you know, and they move in other parts of their body trying to get it to go, and you like, all your big toe don't work, right? And so,
wait, is it just the big toe or the rest of the toes? I'm saying here trying to.
Well, both, right? But the big toe is the big toe is the important one, right? The big toe is really because we really on the ball of our foot a lot of time, right? Mm-hmm. So the big toe is the one where people get the most issue, right? But all your toes, you should be able to lift all your toes off the floor, and then you should be able to control them coming down and control them going up. Like there should be more movement through those toes, and there should be more control through those spaces, right? Because you think about it, when you land for a jump for jumping rope, your foot is doing this every time. Boom, 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 boom. So you think about it, like if this like imagine this is your big toe. I know this is my whole hand, y'all, but imagine that's your big toe, right? Doing that every time. Boom, 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 right? And then I'm asking you to lift your big toe, and you can't actually lift it, right? So this tissue on the bottom of your foot never does this. It never stretches like that, right? And then this side of the joint is your neurological control, right? Because you're asking this stuff to pull the big toe into this position, right? So this is your neurological control. This is the stretch, but your tissue never gets stretched like that because you never do anything that puts your foot in that position, right? So then you immediately go to the concrete, you get your jump rope, and you start going boom, 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 and you start like quickly stretching this tissue that hasn't even been in this length, right? So now you're putting that tissue under your foot under a great deal of stress. And so if it doesn't give first, because it needs to be able to do that to absorb the forces and on up through the foot, you know, so we think about movement, you know, in the midfoot, we think about movement at the ankle, you know, and then on up. So all that force is being dissipated through the body, right? If those joints aren't dissipating force on the way up, if those joints are not able to move and shift, and then the force is going to be driven into the upper extremities, right? It's going to just go straight up, right? So the question that I have for a lot of people oftentimes is like, why don't you think prerequisites are important? You know, like I said, my last post with you know, just parody on David Goggins. I love David Goggins, you know, incredibly, you know, successful human being. And like, I could never have done half the stuff that this dude did in his life. I've read his book, you know.
Me too.
I think it's incredible. He has a lot of trauma. I don't know. I guess, you know, becoming a Navy SEAL is how he dealt with it. People deal with trauma in different ways. but you know, just being straight up, like it's important that we look at prerequisites, right? You can't do calculus without doing algebra. You can't do algebra if you don't know what a number is, you know. So the first thing you got to know is like a number. Then, you know, then once you know numbers, right, you know, you teach the kids the numbers. You don't teach them addition and subtraction first. You teach them like, oh, that's 3, that's 2. Right? Now that they know what 3 is and what 2 is, you're like, what happens when you add these 3 things to that 2? And then you count them up and you're like 5. Okay, now we're gonna start throwing variables and other stuff in there, right? But before you've learned the foundations of the stuff, you over here trying to create a language without you know, letters. you over here trying to make oxtails and gumbo. And you ain't got no crab meat, no sausage. You know what I'm saying? Like you ain't got no roux. You just over here like, I got some water, and I think I'm about to make some gumbo. You're like, well, did you go buy the crab?
Right.
Like, no.
Yeah, it's crazy because I see people all the time, like people that come to me for coaching and things like that, and they're like, hey, look, teach me how to do crossover, the double unders. I'm like, let me just see you do 100 jumps first, please. Because you need like the stamina and your conditioning and all of that and rhythm in order to even try to do that. Like how you trying to get those skills that can't even do 100 basic jumps that last for 30 seconds? Like you're gonna need more stamina and conditioning to even start doing your tricks and stuff, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, well, I appreciate you jumping on with me and randomly.
Yeah, very much welcome.
Taking time. Yo, tell them a little bit about what you were saying the other day about or on that post that Shaun T shared, because I think it's an important message for people.
Okay. So I am considered plus size, and I'm not the typical like fitness looking person, right? But I jump my ass off, okay? And people they're shocked that this is something that I can do, and it's slightly irritating because it's just like, why would you be shocked? Like, Hello. So I had a video that went viral on TikTok or whatever, and somebody left a comment on it like, wow, I'm surprised that you were able to do that. So I was like, let me just do a response video to it. And the response basically was saying, like, why would you be shocked? Why would a person be shocked when someone that's considered plus size can flip and run and jump and skate and do all the things that we're able to do? And I said it wasn't a matter of really of size. It's a matter of being conditioned and having that stamina and a rhythm and the time and the conditioning that you need. And a lot of times, like, jump rope is something that comes from the inside, right? It's not just something that you have to be skilled in, but you have to be able to have that stamina and conditioning in order to even jump. Like, especially like, if you watch my jump rope videos, most of the times I'm jumping, I'm jumping to music. Sometimes this music is not slow. And in the midst of that, I'm smiling and I'm engaging. So now that means the air, because usually when you jump, you're supposed to like breathe in your nose, out your mouth. So now the air is rushing in my lungs, you know what I'm saying? And I'm doing all of this, and I can last from anywhere from 15 seconds to a minute. So that tells you that my conditioning is like top notch. Because jump rope, and this is why your boxers, they jog and they jump, right? Because they need that conditioning top notch. Like, I trained before, for the fun of it, well, I trained for the Golden Gloves, but when I did my first sparring session, I got in there for 3 minutes. I was traumatized, like, because you really need all of that breath. Because in boxing, you're being offensive, you're being defensive, and you have to kind of move yourself and watch and throw punches and protect yourself and do all of the things, right? And I saw how important that running and jumping the rope, especially, was to boxers. So it's like, there's people that's smaller than me that can't, and not even the skill alone, but that are not conditioned to do this work. And you have to have that conditioning. So basically I was saying it doesn't matter if you're big or you're small. It's a matter of if you're conditioned or not. So don't be shocked at sizes when you see people doing like a lot of different things. So,
and that's crazy because I think that, so I have a feeling that this, I mean, I've been, a couple people come at me and kind of, critique my size here and there at times, but it's rare, right? I'm like, I'm doing powerlifting, right? So my body has changed a lot, over the last 2 or 3 years. 3 years ago, I was not doing a whole lot of lifting at all. And I was mainly just doing like my animal flow and just, trying to do handstands and just doing a lot more body weight stuff, and so my body, was different. And once I started powerlifting, like, everything just grows. Everything is just like, boom, like, and then you're eating because you're like, man, I just had a crazy lift set. Like, you just neurologically depleted, all these 1 rep max days, and your body's just automatically like, yo, I'm about to swell up. You know what I'm saying? But I really feel like that these comments and these sorts of things about like ability, like, oh, I can't believe you're able to do certain things, are targeted more towards women oftentimes, because I don't ever see people, criticizing, like, NFL offensive linemen are 350 pounds, almost some of them 400 pounds, like, and these dudes are doing things that a lot of us average people cannot do. They sprint. You know what I'm saying? They make all types of different, agile moves that a lot of us regular everyday people cannot move. And I don't see people saying things like, "Oh, I'm surprised that he can move like that." I mean, I'll never forget, like, Jonathan Ogden. When I was at UCLA, Jonathan Ogden was at UCLA, and for those of you who don't know who Jonathan Ogden is, he was Super Bowl champion for the Ravens. He was the starting left tackle. When Jamal Lewis rushed for 2,000 yards or whatever, right? So he was at UCLA when I was at UCLA, and sometimes in the general basketball, pickup games, some of the players would come to our gym, to the regular people gym. I think they wanted to just feel like they dominate on us, right? But they would come to our gym and join in games and pick up games and stuff. And I remember Jonathan Ogden, 6'8", 300 some odd pounds. And this dude, like, was so damn fast on the basketball court. And, like, I mean, he crossed over and like just literally dunked. Like I wasn't even standing there. He just like I was standing there, and the next thing I know, he's like above me and dunking. I'm only 5'6", so I wasn't gonna do nothing anyway. But I'm just standing there in shock, like he's just coming at me, and I'm like, where am I gonna go? And then the other thing, so Daryl Russell, who he's rest in peace. He was former defensive lineman. He was like 6'3", 330 pounds or something like that. Like 6'2", 6'3", 330, 300 something. And so this is the moment where I realized that these guys were absolutely incredible. Because you see them at a distance on the football field doing things, and you think like they get to the quarterback, pretty quickly, and they're pretty dynamic or whatever the case is, but you lose perspective of the fact that they're over 300 pounds. But this man came to our pickup game, and he was playing on our team, and somebody threw an alley-oop to this man, and he caught it and dunked it. And I said, oh, did I just see what I think? This man is 6'3", 300 plus pounds. Like I get it that you're taller, but the weight on this man tells me this should not be possible. So, I think, but nobody questions those things, right? Nobody questions all of the men out there who are technically plus size, right? Like, why do we have this term? It's like we have this term for women, like, oh, plus size. I'm like, well, what about men? Men are plus size, right? Like, and then we don't judge them based on this size, which is, it's wild, right? And I think it's something we need to like kind of, run through our head and clear up, or at least challenge,
Right. And it's like a lot of times I don't even like judging. I mean, I don't even like addressing the questions in the comments. They don't come as frequent as they used to come like years ago. They used to come like all the time. Mm-hmm. But like, I don't like addressing it all the time, but then it is part of my duty to address it, because we have women here that they want to do something like with themselves. They want to like start working out, or they want to get, well on the inside. And it's like, they're like, okay, no, these people are going to judge me. These people are going to judge me. These people are going to judge me. So I'm just going to kind of stay in the house and not do anything at all. And I feel that it is my duty and my obligation to speak out, because a lot of people really are holding themselves up to false expectations, right? And, I speak for like women, like us women in our 40s. We have a lot going on. We have a lot going on. We have a life. We got kids. We got a job. We got a business. Some of us got school. Some of us still like to go out and eat with our friends. And it's like you're kind of sitting here looking on Instagram, Facebook, or TV, wherever you want to look, and you're comparing yourself to someone that's maybe training for a figure contest, or someone that has like the support at home, or someone that's even younger than you. Like, face up to reality and really face up to what you're willing to do, and do that. Like, I know I like to go out and eat. I like to do things, so I'm going to do what I feel that I want to do. I'm going to be realistic with myself, right? But I already know, okay, these are the workouts that I want to do. And then you have to really look at your reasons for wanting to lose weight. Is it that you want to lose weight to maybe impress these people over here? Are you trying to get a new man? Or are you trying to, I don't know, go out somewhere for your birthday? Those are great reasons to, want to maybe look better or whatever. But now I'm preaching wellness over weight loss, because I do this to feel good. Like, blood pressure and diabetes run rampant in my family, right? And I know back in 2017, when I went to the doctor and they said, hey, you're a pre-diabetic, I was like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. I quit the second job that I had, right? Because I was working 2 full-time jobs. I quit the second job that I had. I got myself back in the gym. I started doing the things that I had to do to get rid of it, because I didn't want it. And then, the high blood pressure, like, for some time, since like hearing about it, I've been trying to like do it on my own. I told to the doctor, hey, look, I don't want the medicine, I don't want this, that, and the third, da, 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 da. But it's like I had to get to a point where I had to comply until I did things on my own. So it's like you can't sit here and say, oh, I don't want to comply with this, I don't want to comply with that. Let me actually put in some kind of work. And last year and beginning of 2020, I said, look, my reasoning for wanting to, I just want to be consistent. I wasn't even saying I wanted to lose weight. I just said I want to be consistent. And I said, okay, bet you're going to do like 10 cents of 100 jumps at least 3 to 5 times a week, because you have to know in your schedule, like knowing, okay, you got 3 kids, 2 on the spectrum, you have a job, you have your husband, like you're stressed out. Like you have to look at the times and really like put a realistic plan together of what you're going to do. Because if you now do something like, say, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go work out 5 days a week, I'm going to cut out all the sugar and I'm going to cut out bread and pasta, you're going to get depressed because you're going to feel like you're depriving yourself. So you have to really look at the reason and make your goals accordingly. So my goal, like I said, was to do the 3 to 5 days a week, whatever. And I was consistent. I did that. And, within like by Thanksgiving or whatever, I was 30 pounds lighter. I was down 1 pill from 3. So you have to do the things that work for you. Stop trying and get your reasoning together, right? Because a lot of people, sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, January to November, only 30. That's it. Oh my God, you should have lost more. But no, because what I did was sustainable. You know what I'm saying? I didn't go on no crash diet, no quick fix. I didn't go work out 7 days a week. I said, these are the things that I'm going to do because this is realistic for my lifestyle. So you really have to look at what's realistic for your lifestyle. And number 2, what you're willing to do. A lot of y'all sitting here tomorrow, I want an 8-pack, 24, 12-pack because all the people change all the time. Like, are you willing to like weigh your food and measure your food? Are you willing to put more vegetables on your plate? Are you willing to drink half your body size in ounces of water every day? Like, be realistic, okay? Stop fooling yourself and do the things that work for you, okay?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I literally that resonates with me 100%. Like there was there's a photo of me. So now it's been 4 years because by the time I was, I had a goal of by the time I was 40, I wanted a certain aesthetic, right? I wanted to look a certain way. I wanted a certain aesthetic. And so, I began that process probably, I think it was like February of March of that year. And my birthday was going to be June 1st. And the things that I did in order to get to that aesthetic were very restrictive to some degree, so it was like, you want this thing, you want to have this 6-pack, you want to have, to look like this, and this is the goal you have by your birthday, because this is the version of yourself you want to be at 40. But it just was not sustainable over time, because once you get to that goal, like I was literally eating the same stuff almost every single day, except for like Sunday when I ate one meal with the family that was off the plan, or off the thing, right? And that was really challenging because you're eating dinner with everybody at night, and it's like you're eating something slightly different than everybody else. And if you have to do it, you have to do it. That's what it is, right? Like if it's for health reasons, if it's like you are diabetic or you're pre-diabetic or whatever the case is, and you need to do that, and that's what you have to do, then you probably should do that,
right?
But at the same time, it was just like it was removing a lot of things from my life that I think was very social, right? Like I couldn't be social with in certain ways. It's like, oh, let's go out and grab this and go out and have this together. And I'd be like, nah, I'm gonna eat before I get there. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and so like people wondering like, well, why are you not eating? What's going on? We fixed all this food and we did all, and it's like, yeah, I'm not eating that. Like, I don't know what's in there. Like I'm gonna put sugar, I'm gonna put all types of stuff in there, right? So, and it was challenging, but I got to where I needed to get, by that time. But like I said, it becomes unsustainable over time because it's like you got kids. The kids are a huge variable. And then when you have a second kid, there's another variable, right? And so, or if you have more, that becomes more variables, right? And so all these things get in between you and the goal. So sometimes just having like a basic plan, like stop with the overly ambitious plan of trying to go 100 miles an hour from the jump. Like you might just want to get from zero to, you might just want to get 10 miles an hour. You know what I'm saying? Like, can you consistently hold 10 miles an hour? Um, and let's start there,
Right.
And so like I think when when we look at like things like what you did, it's like you just started with basics. You started with, like, this is my goal. My goal is to get, 100 jumps 3 times a week. Like, that's a great, easy, attainable kind of goal to set. And then it's like, it's not too high. And if you exceed it, it's great, right? But you're most likely not going to not hit that 3 times a week. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
3 out of 7 is a sustainable thing. If you just went in saying like, nah, I gotta get 7 out of 7, I'm gonna do 7 out of 7, right? Like, then you're stressing yourself out more. You're already
Right.
stressed. You're already in a stressful space, and then you're talking about like, oh, now I gotta do this every day, right? So, like, one of my goals for myself, because last year obviously was the pandemic, and everybody gained some weight during the pandemic, right? For me as a coach, I realized that even though I was lifting weights, what I wasn't doing is I wasn't moving around as frequently as possible. I wasn't walking around as much as I had in the past, right? So when you think about it, it's like I'm sitting in front of my computer screen. I don't have to go anywhere to get the equipment. I'm just telling the person what to get, what to do. Instead of loading plates on things, instead of moving weight from here to there, like I was normally doing, I'm telling someone in my screen, like, go get the kettlebell and bring it here and set it there and then do this and move here. And so what you don't realize is all those little micro movements
Mm-hmm.
were cumulative movement over the course of a day. And when you stripped all that out during the pandemic, that incremental decrease in the number of caloric, output, expenditure added up every day, right? So,
Right.
something I've been looking at, just for myself, to set a nice, easy bar, because, like, obviously life is stressful. It's like you got 2 kids, you got, stuff going on, you're trying to run a business, you're trying to do all these different things. And you also, in those circumstances, high intensity work isn't necessarily the best thing for you. Sometimes you just need some low intensity input to offset that stress. You want to de-stress, right?
Right.
So I looked at it and said, what's the lowest hanging fruit? And I looked at my Apple, in my phone, and the Apple Health thing been tracking my steps for 2 years, or for hella years, however many years I have the device, right? And the clear indicator, I was halfway through this year, right? So it was start of July. I'm halfway through this year, and it's telling me this year you've gotten 1,000 more steps on average than you did last year.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, that's interesting. And the reason why that's probably happening is because I'm out and about more than I was last year. Now I'm training a few clients at their house as opposed to virtually, right? So now, like, it's like, oh, you're doing more steps than you were last year on average. I was like, that's interesting. Then my car was in the shop.
Wow.
So what happened then? Once my car was in the shop, I had, and there was no rentals around here, I had to walk a lot more, right? So then the thing was like, notify me, you've exceeded your monthly steps by, you're up 5,000 steps more than you were last month. And I'm like, really? What? Hold on, let me go deeper into this, see what's going on. Wait, I'm not getting 10,000 steps a day. I'm only getting like 4, 5,000. I'm like, so, okay, well, here's the goal. Let's set the bar. 10,000 steps a day.
Right.
Let's start there, right? Like, that's an easy thing, right? And so now me and my wife almost like in a competition. Like, did you get your 10,000 in? Yeah, it's easy for her because she got the kids all day, so she push the stroller and just go, right? You just go, she take the bus, she go to the park, she go, it's easy. I gotta actually like carve out time, like I'm going for a walk this morning before I go to work, before I go train with people, or in between sessions. Now I'm like, well, I got an hour and a half, instead of filming some stuff right now, maybe I just go for a walk,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I'll get 8,000, and so now you start to understand like, okay, well, 10,000 steps is 5 miles. So, you basically learn like, okay, I need to walk 5 miles a day. But when you think about it as in evolutionary biology and in the history of human beings, like we used to walk that much on a regular basis all the time as hunter gatherers, right? That's a part of your health. And so that, when you think about it, is foot health, ankle,
Mm-hmm.
knee, like all of that. And it doesn't have to be running. It
Right.
doesn't have to be running. It doesn't have to be any of these things. Pick the lowest
Nope.
hanging fruit.
But I would suggest that if you're aiming for like the 10,000 steps a day, at least do some of them at like a high intensity pace. Like walk faster than you're like doing. Because man, that speed walk can be. I literally have to like mentally, because I always tell myself I have like gym ADHD, so I'm not that type of person that like needs like something different, something exciting all the time happening. So
Hmm.
like I started doing like those 45-minute walks 3 times a week, and it's hard because this is like all I'm doing is just walking around in the circle on the track, but I'm walking like intensely walking.
Hmm.
And then I recently started doing like 30-second jogs in between the lap, because the
Hmm.
goal is like to do like 3 miles within like 45 minutes.
Hmm.
Right. So like if you're and usually when I do that, I get like at least 5,000 of the 10,000 steps. So it's like I don't care if the rest of the day the steps are coming from like walking to the kitchen or walking to the
Right.
mailbox or whatever I got to do. But just
Right.
make sure that yes, start like your slow walks or whatever. Someone that's out there listening. But at least make sure some of
Build
those
it
steps
up.
are done like you're walking faster than you like
Mm.
regularly just kind of like lollygag around the house, right? Because you want
Yep.
to burn calories.
Yep. Yep. So build, it's like build up, and then that's your base, right? That's, zone one, zone two is a good place to build some level of base as well. Like I think people skip over that because they're so used to, everybody says you got to train in zone 4 and 5, and you can't do that all the time.
Right.
That's not the way we're built. And then on top of that, like I said, these all have feedback. These all give you feedback in some way, shape, or form, right? And understand that when you are a highly stressed individual, stress is stress. The
Mm-hmm.
the the insides of your body does not care what type of stress it is. The stress response is always going to be the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you live a highly stressed lifestyle and your eating is bad and everything around you is intense and stressful, you got a stressful job that's intense, like doing a stressful workout is piling more on top of that,
Right.
right? So you have to understand that sometimes what's important for you at any given time, or depending on where you're at, like you may get more benefit out of that slower walk than out of the higher intensity stuff. So it's important to know how to offset those things. And then that also, Bernadette's frozen. That also goes into helping you. um, you're going to have a harder time burning fat if that's your objective. Like, oh, I wanted to burn some fat, and so they told me to do some high intensity intervals, and I'm like, but you're a stressed out human being.
Right.
So you're not, so you're gonna do those high intensity intervals and stuff, but you have no recovery.
Right.
Like at what point are you recovering, right? So it just may be that, like, with all of that stuff going on in your life, you need to do more recovery type stuff, and those walks may be the recovery, right? For me, for my walks, it's like an opportunity to like disconnect with everybody, right? I go to the lake near my house, or I go to the park that's near my house and walk. but I'm listening to podcasts. I'm listening to audiobooks. I'm doing all of those things that feed my brain as I'm going. I don't listen to music when I'm doing that stuff because I'm not interested in those inputs at that particular time. So, it kills two birds with one stone.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think you've mentioned, or you've read the book Spark, right?
Spark? I didn't read Spark. I don't think so.
No. Okay. Okay. I thought it was you I was talking to about reading the book Spark, but Spark talks about that a lot. It's by John J. Ratey, if anybody's interested in that book. But it's Spark, the revolutionary science of the brain and exercise. And so it connects the dots between our cognition, which is our understanding and our education, or our ability to absorb and educate ourselves and learn, with with exercise and with the understanding of how our body is more prone to learning and more prone to absorbing new information and more prone to neuroplasticity when we actually do aerobic activity. So not necessarily activity that's high intensity, but activity that's at a lower, more sustainable rate for a longer duration. So there's a space for all of these things, and all of these things is what gives us a more robust wellness kind of plate, right? Like if you had to say, you had a plate and you had this much protein, this much, fiber, and this much, what's the other one?
Hard.
I'm just dying. Protein, carbohydrates, fat. There we go. Protein, carbohydrates, fat. So you want to have a plate that has the appropriate balance for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that balance might be different depending on who you are. And somebody wrote a comment here. Is it possible that doing intentionally stressful things with your body, like sauna or cold plunge, will help you deal with stress in other areas of your life? I think that those things depend. The things that you do depend on the ways in which you approach them. So, a cold plunge is stressful, but I think what people neglect to understand is if you jump in a cold, water and you're hyperventilating, then that's crazy stressful, right? But I think the part that's missing is understanding that, the breath is what's important there, right? So fight or flight, which is what happens when you're stressed, right? Your fight or flight kicks on, cortisol levels kick up, that part of your body's response is controlled by breathing. And that's the only thing that we can regulate our breathing, right? Which is crazy, right? The breath, we can't decide to stop our heart for a few minutes and be like, okay, cool, now I'm back, right? But breathing is a process which we've offloaded, from being intentional, right? It's just a very autonomic thing, right? It just automatically runs in the background for the most part, right? And when we get stressed, we're out of control because we've offloaded that, right? So we're out of control of our breathings because we've offloaded it. It's just a thing that happens that keeps us alive, right? And then so we get stressed, and what we don't realize is that our breathing changes and we're not in control of it. But we have the capability of changing the pace at which we breathe. It is one of the few things that we have control of in our autonomic nervous system to be able to say, you know what, I'm stressed out right now. I tightened up and I stopped breathing because I'm stressed out and I want to fight. But if I just decide to take deep breaths, hold the breath, right? We can hold our breath. We can't stop our heart and say heart, stop doing this, but we can hold our breath. And then we can take longer exhalations and we can take longer inhalations. We can change the cadence So in that situation, we have the ability to mitigate stress responses just through breathing. And I think that's an amazing thing that we need to understand. But when we talk about like training for breathing, right? Like I don't think we talk about training enough. We're talking about prerequisites. We're talking about prerequisites for jumping rope. But when you think about like when I say like you need to train those low levels of aerobic capacity, right? I'm basically saying you need to learn how to control, how to build a broad base of breathing. Like you build that broad base of breath and understanding of your breath. And that is where there's a lot of money. There's a lot of things to be gained.
That's actually true, because you know it's so funny. Like sometimes when I'm doing like those fast jumps to the music, like I get to a point where I kind of have to like either slow down or change that. Like I actually really do that, and I'll like
change it, right?
And I'll take like a deep breath, like after I do something right quick, I'm like, and then I'll like kind of change my footwork to do something slower, and then I kind of go back to going fast to go, you know, like so I do that with the jumping rope. That's it's really amazing, yeah.
Because think about it, like when we do a sprint or we do any of that sort of stuff, right? We finish the sprint, and immediately everybody's like, "Hey," and immediately everybody's like, and that's terrible, right? But like people, what do they say? Breathe, right? Right? Slow that pace down. Slow that pace of your breath down, right? And that's how you recover from the sprint, right? But the only way you're going to have a quick recovery is if you have a broad, if you have a broad base of aerobic capacity. Question here: what resources did you use to develop your current understanding of mobility and movement? A variety, but the main thing that kind of catapulted me into that space is functional range systems. And what's going on? You got a drill going on in there?
No, my son is doing some elliptical backwards. I don't know why.
The main thing is functional range systems. But after that, as a kind of through line of the training, or the kind of through line of mobility and movement, you know, I just kind of like branch it out into all the things that I was already doing, which is, you know, animal flow, steel mace training, strength and conditioning already. And then like diving more into research on different topics, which I think relate to. So it's like, I can't necessarily tell you how I get to the conclusions that I come to, but it's all like a combination of my own personal experience, as well as the baseline of a perspective from functional range systems. All right. Well, I'm gonna let you go and see if there's any last minute questions on here. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. That was fun.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Yo. All right. So if y'all still got any questions, you can hit the little question mark thing down to the side. Thank you all for the badges and support. Really appreciate it. It's a way in which I can continue to pump out all this content and education for you all. Spend a lot of time and energy, you know, digging up resources. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about breath, I think there's some great resources out there. You know, a couple of things that I really enjoyed. One book by James Nestor called Breath, actually. That was a great book. Very like a very overarching kind of like bird's eye view of breathing and understanding. Another a great podcast that I listened to on Radiolab, I think it's called Breathe. If you're interested in those, just DM me and I will send you the link to that podcast by Radiolab. And the name of the book again is Breath by James Nestor, which I thought was very interesting. Um, let's see, if you have any questions, hit the question mark thing, but I'm gonna read this comment here. So functional range systems, what order do you recommend to go through the certifications? FRC is first, functional range conditioning is first. And so I took functional range conditioning, I think in 2017 or 16, somewhere around there, 17 maybe. Um, and at the time, it was taught by one of the creators of it, Dr. Andrew Ospina, and I still think that he does the best job at teaching it. Um, but there's so much more information about the thought process in a lot of the summits. They did 2 summits, which I wasn't able to attend, but I was able to watch the replays of them, and I think it kind of fleshed out things a lot better. But I spent probably a year and a half just kind of letting FRC sit with me in my understanding of that before taking functional range assessment, which was then kind of a way to build on, and to take a deeper look at assessing people. I think a lot of people go through all of it a little bit too fast. I know in this last year, I got messages from a lot of people who were going through FRC 1 month and the very next month going through FRA, and it's all virtual as well. And so I'm not sure, how that's working out for people, but I think that, sitting with, not being super, not being all about like just having the letters and the certifications, but being about like truly understanding what it is you're trying to learn and what it means. And then, as Nat always said to me, he's like, I go into things with a healthy amount of skepticism and disbelief. Like, I don't believe you. Like, I'm gonna have to go and do my own. And so, I spend a lot of time, also just trying to see, like, does this even make sense? And is this legitimately a thing? And I think over time, I've kind of realized that yes, it is an important aspect, and somebody at some point is going to build off of these ideas. I think all of this stuff has been around. It's just been packaged in such a way that makes it convenient and easy to and more digestible than just looking at research and trying to do it yourself. And then I found, lots of resources out there, like the post I just recently posted about length of your tissue and training at length, by what's his name? His last name is Arinchuk, but it was recent podcast. It was a podcast episode, and this gentleman did some research, or did a review paper of all the research for training, all the current available research of training isometrics, quasi what's it called? Eccentrics, isometrics, and EQIs, eccentric quasi isometrics. That's it. So these are important thought processes and important ways of kind of looking at the way in which we train, and I think there's some interesting conclusions to be gained from it. And like, we're all just mad scientists, really. But there are some things that just currently work better than other things out there. And there are some things that work better in conjunction with other things. There are people who are combining FRS with a lot of other different types of modalities and getting great results. And so I think that's important to note. And so, yeah. What up, Corey? Corey in the house. I might be in San Diego in about was it a week and a half. We might need to link up, bruh. But yeah, if there are no questions, I haven't seen any questions pop up in a minute, then I'm gonna go ahead and dip out. It's been fun. It's been a great Q&A. We have a surprise random guest, Bernadette Henry, Make It Fun NYC. That was totally random. We're gonna have her back maybe in a month or so for one of the Monday coffee breaks. So stay tuned for that, and I'll chat with y'all later. Peace.